this great businessman. But what I try to remind people of over and over again is that this guy isn't allowed to operate a business in the state of New York because he's actually a terrible business person. And this, honestly, this idea, this ploy to throw tariffs onto everything, I don't even understand how Elon can stand for it, because his precious little Tesla, while they may be made in right here in Texas nowadays, here is the reality. The Tesla has components of it that are not made in the United States.
Yeah. Democrats have a messaging problem. It's what we've been talking about since the election. And it is coming up again with Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and their Department of Government Efficiency, or do, where I've seen Democrats prematurely congratulate Musk, saying that he is focused on cutting government spending, reducing the bloated budget of the Pentagon, and giving him credit for it for some reason, when these have been talking points that Democrats have been pushing for the longest time. And Elon isn't focused on cutting government spending. Elon Musk wants to cut programs that actually help people. He doesn't want to trim the fat because he's some genius businessman. No, we saw what he did with Twitter. If he does it to our government, it'll be a nightmare. They don't know what they're talking about. So stop giving them credit, which is exactly what Jasmine Crockett had to say in a brutal takedown of Elon Musk and some Democrats who are really missing the mark on this messaging, and a clip that I can't wait to check out. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy this channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now let's get into Jasmine Crockett.
Federal contracts. This also starts with the president-elect of the United States. We know that he has too many entanglements. We know that the Oversight Committee has tried to dig into whether or not and how large the violations as it relates to the Emoluments Clause Donald Trump engaged in his first administration. We also know that almost on the day after his son-in-law left the White House, he was then taking foreign dollars, seemingly probably because of his association with the White House, right? So we have nothing but conflicts, but I don't think that this administration cares about conflicts. We know that the Supreme Court has empowered them to literally do whatever they want to. So conflict or not, you know, these guys are playing fast and loose. And unfortunately, with the election that we just had, it's almost as if the American people don't care if they play fast and loose, because we already knew that Donald Trump was a fraudster who surrounded himself with a number of criminals, which is why he ended up handing down so many pardons to people within his inner circles. It wasn't those people that we know historically have had issues with the criminal justice system, because they have been targeted. And maybe we needed to give some relief to this black or brown family because we know that their sentence was something that was excessive, or because we know that unfortunately their communities have historically been targeted. No, that's not who Donald Trump was looking out for. He was looking out for his inner circle, and that is exactly who he's looking out for now. I would hope and wish the best for this administration, because I love this country, but I am telling you right now, I didn't have faith in him when he was running his campaign, and based upon the people that he is trying to put into position, I am having even less faith that this guy cares about us, the regular schmegular United States citizens.
Eamon, you tried to get at this issue of conflicts of interest, which, I try to mark the ways in which Trump 2.0 is so different from the first Trump presidency. One of them is there's not even a pretense that there aren't financial benefits to being associated in this Trump administration. Let me play your question and answer with Vivek on the issue of conflicts.
I think that anybody who's offering, this applies to me, applies to anybody else in government too, is anybody who's offering recommendations, you should always have a skeptical lens to look at what are their motivations for making that recommendation. I say that's the best advice I'd give the public always. Be skeptical of when somebody's making a recommendation. That being said, apply that standard 360 degrees. What do we have today? You have regulators who are regularly joining the industry. Is that they regulated? Is that a conflict of interest when they were making that decision as a regulator? Absolutely. So I would just say apply that standard 360 degrees.
I mean, I guess the problem with that is they're not applying it in either direction, at least as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, Elon Musk, as you've been saying, is a billionaire. He gets a lot of federal contracts, and he's going to be deciding which federal contracts are wasteful. Do you think he's going to decide, that his own federal contracts are the ones that are wasteful? We'll wait and see. The Congresswoman mentions revenue, though, and that's an interesting one. I've got a story out that just posted while we've been on this segment on CNBC.com about the tens of thousands of American millionaires who the IRS has discovered are simply not filing tax returns at all with the IRS in violation of their tax obligations. That is a huge brazen tax dodge by a lot of wealthy Americans. I mentioned that story to Vivek Ramaswamy yesterday when we were talking off stage to gauge his interest in that. He seemed interested in the idea of going after some of those folks. We'll see if they embrace the idea of getting more revenue from, blatant tax dodgers as the ones that we're talking about in the story on CNBC.com right now. Usually, though, Republicans don't like anything that even smells like a tax increase. So anything that's about tax enforcement might be radioactive on the Republican side of the aisle, and they might not be able to raise revenue either when it comes down to it. We'll see.
I mean, Tim, there's some sort of dissonance, right? I mean, Trump, who the first time rode this wave of almost like a slice of the Bernie coalition, is now out of the closet as a billionaire bro. These aren't even like tech bros. These are the billionaires clubs. Do you think are any laws of political gravity that still apply to him around these issues?
I do. I do. I mean, I know you want to say no to that answer, right? It's like how does he win again? But I've always thought this, going all the way back to 2016 when Democrats were asking for advice, in the super PAC and that campaign, the Hillary super PAC. And I was like, what people have not been able to get to stick to him is the way that his decisions hurt real people, and that happened in his private sector life. And I don't think that anyone on the left or and Never Trumpers, none of us have done a particularly good job of making that case repeatedly. That feels like the distant past now. But I think in this administration, there will be an opportunity to re-up that, because that is going to happen again. And again, billionaires are going to get good deals. The corruption is going to be mind-boggling, like nothing compared to the first administration. I mean, he has his own Bitcoin now that people can invest in that is totally untrackable. We could just do hours on the potential corruption that is out there. So I do think that could reach their political, I think that there could be some political gravity associated with that. And, the one other thing, if we're talking positive for a second, is I just look at this DOGE commission and they say there's some easy low-hanging fruit from there. That New York Times report says $3 billion is going to Elon Musk companies. Boom, just lop off 75% of that right there.
Across
That's
the board,
cool
right?
$2 billion plus. Yeah, right there. I think Elon could kind of be the tip of the spear on this.
Okay, so Congresswoman, you have an opportunity to pitch it. Apparently, since we've been having this conversation, Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have left the Capitol, and their parting words were that they, quote, want to meet with Democrats next time. Would you meet with them?
Oh, I would meet. Now, I don't know that they want to meet with me, but I would absolutely. Listen, if they are going to have this little DOGE commission or whatever it is that they are calling, I absolutely want to understand as much about it as I can so that I can report back. It's kind of like that time that we had to go and see the January 6ers at the jail. I had to show up to make sure that the truth was going to be reported. So absolutely, come and see me, guys, and let's have a talk so I can make sure that the truth is in the atmosphere. But I do want to point out something that was mentioned, which was about the revenue. This is something that we talked about in the Oversight Committee, because as I have stated over and over, the Oversight Committee is to make sure that we are getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in our government. And one of the things that we talked about is the fact that they continuously defund the IRS. We know that right now the IRS is actually at a record low as it relates to how much money they're getting. I want to say the amount of money that they're getting right now for their employees is around the levels that it was in the 1970s. And what I argue all the time is that we have a few more people in this country, and so absolutely we should not be at the levels that we were at in the 1970s. And what we consistently hear from the IRS is that they go after the little guy. They go after the guy that's making $50,000 and $60,000 and $70,000 a year, and they're attacking them for not paying their taxes and things like that, because they don't have the support that they need to be able to go after these big guys, because they say, well, their taxes are too complicated, and they continuously push to defund the IRS.
I think that was Trump's mantra,
Congresswoman,
right?
in this story we're talking about, I hate to interrupt. I was just going to say, Congresswoman, in this story that we're talking about that we just posted, we're talking about people making $1 million a year or more, $5 million a year or more, who are simply just not filing their tax returns with the IRS. And there's a whole lot of reasons, presumably, why some of them are doing that. Some of those reasons could be legitimate, like sickness and other things. But there's a lot of tax avoidance going on, and it's not complicated. It's not these, esoteric strategies where they're sending the money to Ireland and then back and all this kind of stuff. They're just not filing their returns. That seems to be, some low-hanging fruit that somebody could go after if they wanted to. But the IRS just hasn't had the funding, and the Department of Justice just hasn't had the appetite, because these are just misdemeanors. It's kind of small potatoes for them. So a lot of these guys have gone unpunished for years.
All right, so we'll see.
Unless your last name is Biden.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jasmine.
No, I was saying, unless your last name is Biden, then yes, we've got an appetite to figure out, what's been going on with your taxes, even after you have entered into an agreement and paid your taxes. You can maybe face a felony, which is something that typically is not done by the Department of Justice. I just wanted to add that point.
I completely agree that there are inefficiencies in our government and that we want to make sure that we are using taxpayer dollars the best we can, but deciding to cut 75% of government workers, just get rid of them entirely, or defund the IRS, when in fact, for every dollar we spend on the IRS, the American people get $35 back, because they're not going after you or me or some just regular work and family out there. They're going after billionaires who are doing everything they can and have huge staffs to avoid paying as many taxes as possible. And so that's why we do, in fact, need to fund the IRS, because they're going after the corrupt giant corporations or billionaires like Elon Musk. That's the messaging that we have to focus on, and we can't give credit to people who don't actually deserve it and are only going to use to make themselves seem more legitimate in their effort to attack and undermine Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and government programs that actually work. A great call out from Jasmine Crockett. And we need more. And we're going to be talking about them every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you're stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.